I think, there are two minds, there are two philosophies, there are two worlds that have a strong connection. But if you could imagine the inner landscape being an ocean, then the outer landscape, the manifested body, would be the wave. And then I was thinking, why work with the wave if you can work with the ocean? The ocean is the potentiality. And the ocean has all these symbols and concepts that we work with in Eastern medicine.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Geological, the podcast that curates East Asian medicine and methods through the power of conversation. I get a little uncomfortable when new patients come in and share with me the language that their previous or concurrent practitioner used in describing their condition. It bothers me when patients tell me the diagnosis is that their, air quotes here, adrenals are shot, or have been told that their discs are blown out. It seems to me it's a kind of medical hexing. I'm not saying they don't have a problem, but the metaphors we have tend to be the stories that we live into. So it's helpful, maybe even wise, to be careful with the way that we talk about our problems. One other thing, and as a practitioner, trust me, I've done this a lot over the years. I look more at what's wrong than what's right. I imagined my job was to cleverly track down a problem, skillfully identify what's wrong, point out what's broken, and then go about repairing the mess. That did give me a sense of power and capacity to see what's wrong and do something about it. And for sure, there are plenty of times that is needed, especially in emergent and life-threatening situations. But the people that come to see us, usually not a life-threatening situation. Finding what's wrong is part of the work, but also determining a person's strengths and resources is vitally important. People come to us to fix the problem, to take away the suffering they've not been able to resolve on their own. And especially with the kind of medicine that we practice, identifying the places of strength and capacity is essential, because we can often enough lean on those to help fill the deficiencies or counter the pathogenic excesses. That 5-phase model that stands as one of the pillars of East Asian medical thinking, it's a handy map, not just for seeing where there are problems, but it also shows where you can lean on for solutions. For sure, the problems people come in with are real, and it's worth considering how they talk to themselves about their troubles and how we do as well. Learning to identify overlooked or unused strengths and resources, I think it is a key to crafting up an effective acupuncture treatment. Beyond that, without minimizing a patient's troubles, talking about how the body is capable, through rest, nourishment, treatment, and time, can correct overstrained organs. This will point them in a different direction than your adrenals are shot. Reminding them that the body is constantly in a process of remodeling itself, and that there are people with herniated discs who don't experience pain. It can help shift the mantra-like focus on the problem. Again, I'm not suggesting we minimize or attempt to talk people out of their troubles. For sure, there are solutions where a surgeon's tools and expertise, it's the best solution. And let's be real, for certain conditions, medications have their place. Our job is not to fight conventional medicine, especially when it's the right tool for the right job. That said, the way we frame possibilities with our words, it has influence. Carefully choosing our words is not unlike attentively selecting an acupuncture point or a particular pair of organs to work on. How we engage the mind can have an effect on our well-being in profound ways. Just what the mind is, that's a slippery topic. In Chinese, the character Xin represents both heart and mind. In Western culture, we tend to associate the mind with the brain. It does not take a genius to see how both of these perspectives hold some truth, and there certainly is overlap. But for me, What is even more interesting is how the mind and the body interact. We are all familiar with how the emotions can be the source of internally generated illness. And we're all familiar with how injury or illness can in turn have an effect on our emotional life. Some would go so far as to say all physical illness is rooted in the emotions. To me, that seems a bit simplistic, but I'd agree. Our physiology and the internal climate generated by the emotions, they're not disconnected. In this conversation with Joyce Vlarrkamp, we discuss the inner landscape not just of the patient, but the practitioner as well, along with the metaphors and imagery through which patients navigate their experience. If you're keen on investigating the inner landscape, you're going to enjoy this conversation. But first, some solutions to a few clinic challenges that you might have from the folks who make it possible for you to listen to a new Qiological every Tuesday morning. Stay with us. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. Blue Poppy, your new one-stop shop, has speedy shipping options on everything that you need for your clinic. It's Women's Health Month at Mayway Herbs. Check out their new website for learning resources on helping women with herbal medicine. Are you a creature of habit? How about making a change that helps your patients and the planet with AccuFast needles? And later in the show, raising your fees doesn't have to be a difficult process. Jane has helpful suggestions on making it easy and effective. And finally, have you considered that having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things that you can do? Julie Bear Don't Walk has, and she can help you do something about it too. Do be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Picture this. Your clinic is buzzing with patients, and then you realize that you're down to your last box of needles. No need for panic, because Blue Poppy, your one-stop shop for all your acupuncture needs, they ship orders received before 3 p.m. on the same day. With a quick visit to Blue Poppy's website, you can order premium needles, herbal formulas, and that special Dr. Bob's oil that your patients love. Blue Poppy understands practitioners can't keep patients waiting. That's why they strive to get you what you need when you need it. From high-quality Chinese herbs and formulations to acupuncture supplies and clinical essentials, Blue Poppy has served practitioners for nearly 40 years with products that meet the highest of standards. Discover everything Blue Poppy has to offer by visiting www.bluepoppy.com, and don't forget to subscribe to their mailing list for exclusive offers and more.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lyle, president of Mayway Herbs. May is Women's Health Month, and as a women-owned and women-run business, we especially love how Chinese medicine can support wellness through every stage of a woman's life. So in this month's newsletter and podcast, we're covering topics like PMS, pregnancy, menopause, and osteoporosis. We'll share expert insights and effective treatment strategies you can put to good use in your clinic. Our Plumflower brand line includes herbal tea pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, all of which you can find on Mayway.com. And where you can also find articles, videos, and other resources to support your practice. Since 1969, Mayway has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. In these challenging times, please know that we remain committed to keeping our products accessible and affordable so you can take care of yourself and your patients. As always, thank you for supporting Real Chinese Medicine.
Daily habits and routines feel comforting, familiar, easy, automatic. That's the power of repetition. You've worked out the kinks and can do it with your eyes closed. But what if you shook things up? What if you ditched the old routine and tried something new? Hi, I'm John Sten. I've practiced acupuncture for over 30 years, and together with my wife Kelly, we created the world's first eco-friendly acupuncture needle. The AccuFast earth-friendly needle system cuts your packaging waste by 60 to 90%, depending upon your needle type, speeds up your needling, gives you more control, and best of all, while you're healing patients, we plant a tree for every 2 boxes your clinic uses. Thousands of acupuncturists have already made the switch. In just the last year, they've helped plant over 16,000 trees. Since we started, That number has grown to over 50,000. So break the routine. Be the change. Visit acufastneedles.com. Your patients and the planet will thank you.
Joyce Vlarrkamp, welcome to Geological.
Thank you, Michael. Great being here.
It is great having you here. I always love talking to you Shiatsu practitioners. You're like the hands-on side of the Oriental medicine house. I particularly love talking to you guys because those of us that do acupuncture, right? There's this whole scholarly tradition. We think about our medicine a lot. And you guys doing shiatsu, it seems that you're just putting your hands on people and letting the hands do the talking. I've been fortunate to have had some experience with learning a little Japanese acupuncture. Again, very, very hands-on. I've had some experience studying the engaging vitality. Again, it's a hands-on, attentive way of, I'm going to say, interacting with a kind of a landscape.
Yeah, there you got me. Yeah. The word landscape triggers me, of course, because I wanted to talk about the inner landscape. But it's true. It's true. It's very different because I practice both. I studied both shiatsu and acupuncture, and I was really disappointed in acupuncture class because I thought, what are these guys? They are reading a book. I want somebody to show me how to do it and then get the experience. That's a very different approach. Huh?
So tell me more about the differences for you.
I tried to study shiatsu in a time when there were still no schools in Holland. There weren't. And so you kind of heard about a teacher visiting and then tried to go there. Anywhere in Europe, you kind of followed the teachers. And then at a certain point, I met this Kasunori Sasaki. He's from the school of Masunaga, the Zen Shiatsu school. And I realized this is my style. It's very dynamic, it's very nice, and also very much based in tradition, which we're all curious about, of course. And so then from that time on, I studied shiatsu, but as my teacher spoke, we just talked about it, that it's sometimes very difficult to understand the pronunciation of Japanese people into English, or in your case, Chinese. His English was quite hard to get. And my material, they were all like calligraphy. I couldn't read it afterwards, so I thought I have to study acupuncture to be able to grasp the theory. And that was a big disappointment for me because I thought this is not based in any tradition or experience. So I decided not to become an acupuncturist until I went to Japan and I came into the school of Koda Fukushima. He's a blind acupuncturist who set up the Toya Hari, the Japanese style of acupuncture, which is again very hands-on. And that I could relate to. And I thought, okay, if I want to do acupuncture, this is my style. Because it starts from feeling the skin and being aware of your body. And this is what I know. This is where I come from. So this was my ultimate style of acupuncture.
Yeah. Okay, you just said something really evocative. This is where I come from.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really feel embedded in the Zen Shiatsu style. And I think maybe that's a difference if you compare acupuncture and shiatsu, because in shiatsu you work on the floor, on a futon, on a tatami, and then you cannot really press. I mean, it's not pushing, or if you want to move the chi of the meridians, you have to bring your hara. You're probably aware of this word, no? Hara, the abdomen, the lower part of the belly, and so in order to move the chi, you have to bring your hara, and therefore you are from the beginning you are very much aware of your own body and your own dantian, in fact, the lower dantian. So this is really what is very important, became very important in my life. Suddenly you find yourself bicycling with your hara, or rowing, or swimming, or it becomes part of you, like martial arts. I think people that practice martial arts do the same thing. And the calligraphy is done with the hara, or the tea ceremony. It's everywhere in traditional movements. Yeah, I feel very inspired by that.
I am struck by, first of all, how the mental process of learning acupuncture, it just did not land for you whatsoever. I mean, some of us really love scholarly kinds of things, and some of us, even like mathematics, right? There are people that get mathematics, and they kind of there's a beauty in it, and they see the relationships, and it's kind of it's a world, and they can inhabit that world. And there's other people with mathematics. We look at it, and our eyes cross, and we get a headache, and we're thinking about anything except math, right? It sounds like you had a experience a little bit like that, maybe, with studying the acupuncture with that very mental, focus, especially after you've been working on the floor, not just working on the floor, but when you talk about you put your hara in it, right? You put this aspect of the like core of your body into the motion, into the touch, just into everything. It's like it's in it. There's no hara in studying the classics through reading a book. And look, I love reading books, but it's not an embodied experience.
No, but I agree with you, Michael. Of course, we are all have our different qualities, but I enjoy very much the reading the classics. Or I'm a big fan of many books, but the way it was taught was not from an embodied experience, and that I found very hard. If I only see talking head, or I love to listen to experienced teachers that have an, that can bring across their experience, instead of just reading out of a book. Or and that was my experience at that time, comparing the two. Yeah.
Tell me a little more about embodied experience.
Yeah, I think in Zen Shiatsu, but also in Toyahari, you start from feeling yourself. It's your position, and it is the way you use your body to be able to connect to the receiver's body and mind. And so we have a clear starting point. You cannot just start from an idea. I mean, you have to position yourself. You're on the floor, or alongside the table, and feel where you're working from. I think when I'm working, I must at least a dozen times I check my shoulders, and I feel if I still come from my hara. And also by doing that, you feel the answer of your patient. You can also receive that as a bodily experience. So that is very important, and therefore, becoming a practitioner, you have to develop yourself more and more, being aware of how you use your body, and how you bring about the movement of qi. It's there's a big development in there. Because I have a school in Holland, 4-year training in Zen Shiatsu, and it's beautiful to see students coming from the first year to the 4th year, and then see how they use their body. And by using the body, it's not only the body, of course, it's more like the chi. You see them developing their chi, and that's an amazing process to see. Yeah, I love that.
I bet they walk differently after a year or two of study, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. All the movements go different. Swimming and the bicycling. Yeah. So it's very interesting.
Again, I'm thinking about the process of learning acupuncture and how much of it is a mental game, which I also enjoy. And it's not a but, it's an and. And there's that aspect of how you are with the patient. You just said something that I think I've overlooked for a long time. But you said it, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I should attend to this more, starting with myself. It's like, how am I with a patient? Well, how about I start with how I am with myself in this physical moment? I think I've been overlooking that.
Yeah, so immediately you go out and focus on your patient without first establishing your own line or your own connection.
I think that's true. I mean, we're having this conversation and I'm thinking about how I work, and I think I've been mostly skipping that step. I've heard people say things like, well, first take a breath and center yourself. And so often I don't even know what that means. It's like you're in a meditation class or something and they say, take a deep calming breath. And I'm thinking, don't tell me what to do because I'm just kind of contrary. Take a deep cleansing breath. Like, you don't tell, I'm my own butt, right? I'm my own boss. Don't tell me what to do. You can imagine what my parents went through, right?
Somewhere in this conversation, Michael, I wanted to ask you if I could, do this with the listeners and with you. So only 1 or 2 minutes and not taking breaths, but just establishing this connection with the three dan chants, with the san bao. It is a very quick process, and it's amazing how fast that goes. So I would love to do that with you guys if that's allowed.
Yeah. So number one, it's allowed because it's geological. I mean, almost anything's allowed, right? It's a spontaneous exploration. And secondly, yes, that's very generous of you. I would appreciate a little help in helping me attend to my own. Again, I love that word landscape. I know it's a word that you use too. It's part of a book title of yours even. And I often think of when working in clinic, there's like a terrain that we traverse together, right? You can do it with words, you can do it with touch, you can do it with needles, all kinds of things. I often think of the terrain that we traverse. So yeah, I would love a little help from you with that. And all y'all's listening can too, but if you're driving, maybe pull over to the side of the road.
That's what I wanted to start with, because it's good if you sit down or are walking in nature, but if you're driving or bicycling, please do it with your eyes open.
Okay.
Okay. Shall we start? Yeah?
Yeah, let's start.
Okay, so when you're sitting down, you just wiggle a little bit so you find your sitting bones. And you can do that also when you're standing, wiggle a little bit on your feet or walking. So if you have established like a ground base, then we start with the eyes. The book title is Softening Our Gaze. So we start with the eyes, and you imagine your eyes becoming very round and soft. And you can close them if you like to, but you can also turn your gaze inward. You don't need to close it, but you imagine your eyes becoming very soft, all the little muscles around it relaxing. Imagine yourself looking at something very cute, like a litter of kittens, and you soften your eyes immediately, something that you like to look at. And you can relax the rest of your face, your jaws. This rounding of the eyes is the most important thing. And once you've done that, you listen to the sounds around you. You hear my voice, or you might hear a breath or a clock. And then you try to connect to the silence between the sounds. Okay, and then you take this silence down along your throat to the chest. And in the chest, you imagine your sternum, your breastbone, and it has a bud of a flower, and it's slowly opening. Well, your flower is slowly opening, and the petals of the flower connect to your dearest ones, family, children, friends, your favorite pet. You're not alone, you're connected. And then the silence and the connection go down below your diaphragm. There you come to the hara. The hara is where your vitality lives. Jing. You might feel the breath expanding. You're alive. That's your original key, your vitality. And then below your belly is the bottom surface. You might want to close that to seal off your system. And you could do it by just pulling the muscle a little bit, but you could also make a sound. It's a t sound. And when you make that sound, you feel your perineum muscle contract a little bit. Now you're in your inner landscape. And I wonder how that feels, wandering in your inner landscape. Okay, and then you slowly come back. You might want to open your eyes. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that would be a lovely way to take a minute or two for sitting down with a patient and allowing a little bit of quiet. It feels quiet. Yeah, that feels different on the inside. Often, again, I'm very mental in my work, which I think is why I'm so often drawn to the hands-on stuff, because it's an antidote that I need. And so it's something I've been practicing for years and years and years. Sometimes I don't feel like I've gotten very far, but yes, it's often an antidote to the mentality that I bring to the game, which I also like. There's a place for it, but yeah, that space of being able to feel the terrain that you're in and to quiet on the inside, it's really important. The part about rounding the eyes and looking at something that's cute, something that gives you delight.
Yeah, you love that. Oh, wow.
Man, yeah.
I thought I have to be careful how to choose the words, because then you have this experience with the breath. I'm not telling you what to do.
Well, look, I understand that when someone says take a deep cleansing breath, I understand they mean it as an invitation. Okay, it's just I happen to be a bit of there's a confrontational part of me that doesn't like being told what to do. But when something's offered as an invitation, well, that's a whole different thing. That's a completely different matter. If I'm being told to do something, resistance comes up immediately. If I'm being invited into something, that's a whole different thing, which is one of the reasons why these days I rarely give advice to people in clinic. I used to do it all the time. I used to think it was part of my job. Well, I got some good health advice for you. Nobody wants advice unless it's asked for, unless it's an invitation. If you're invited, then I'll have something to say. But I wait for that invitation. So with you, yes, it was an invitation. The rounding of the eyes and something that brings you delight. It's like, oh yeah, I love that. Who doesn't love that? You look at something that brings you delight, your body fills with delight. The nervous system releases the tension that it's otherwise carrying. Look, I've got a number of things in my treatment room that bring me delight. They're in my room because they bring me delight.
That's good. It's not for your patients, it's for yourself.
Well, I can do it with a little more intention now.
Oh, wow, I love that. So when you make these 3 steps, you encounter your three dantians, the three treasures. And so in the upper part is the Shen part, that you connect to, the silence, and you can immediately feel the space beyond and your head, the heaven, or and so the heart part is the chi, so the connection, and the lower belly that houses the jing, your vitality. So you have your treasures there in position right away.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary: raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code CHIOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Yes, and what I love about this, Jingqi Shen, it's not just an idea, it also can be an embodied experience. You just took us through it. And that's different than the idea, right? When I have the idea of Shen, it doesn't feel like delight. It's this other thing when I have an idea. But in just going through this experience with you and realizing that, oh, Shen and delight, wow, they're actually totally wrapped up with each other. Oh, okay. That's new.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And these three steps coming into your three treasures, and the sunbow, they're taking from this picture that probably we all know as acupuncturists, the Naijing too. You're familiar with this picture, Michael? It's this rubbing of a stone, black and white, drawing of the side view of a torso. Maybe you've seen it somewhere. And that was my reason that I was triggered to go into this research about the inner landscape. Of course, we can imagine our body being a landscape with a king, queen, or emperor, empress as the one who connects to heaven. But all the officials that Wang Di talks about, they are working in the inner landscape, the general and the prime minister, the grain house. So we have some ideas about the officials, all the meridians that are working in the inner landscape. And then at the same time, there's the outer landscape. So we always thought we were practicing something very whole, but of course, here's the dualism again. So we have this outer landscape and we have this inner landscape. And the inner landscape is the drawing of the Naijing Tu is the inner landscape, drawing of the inner landscape. And then the meridians are like the pathways between them. So you can activate the potential of the inner landscape into the outer landscape, into the manifested body or the body that we can touch and feel. So it's very, very interesting that I've always waited for science to prove qi and to prove the meridians. I couldn't stand that nobody could find them, But since I've accepted the fact that we have like two landscapes, one inside, that's a potentiality, and there's the outer landscape, I think, there are two minds, there are two philosophies, there are two worlds that have a strong connection. But if you could imagine the inner landscape being an ocean, then the outer landscape, the manifested body, would be the wave. And then I was thinking, why work with the wave if you can work with the ocean? The ocean is the potentiality, and the ocean has all these symbols and concepts that we work with in Eastern medicine. We know when we're talking about lung, we were not only talking about the lung that we know from a Western perspective. We know we're talking about so much more, about the nose, throat, about emotion, about boundaries, about skin. I sometimes tell my students we have a Chinese lung, but then it's still a little bit limited. So the idea that in the inner landscape everything is whole and it has so much potentiality. So because they're concepts, they're metaphors, they're symbols, and therefore you can access them and you can train them, you can influence them, and bring about the changes also in the manifested body. So this has been my work for the last let's say 10 years to investigate this, and it's great. That's why I wrote this book in Dutch, and well, I thought more people should be able to read it. So I had it translated in English a few months ago, and it's great because for me it adds an extra dimension that I didn't know before, and I'm really grateful that I discovered this. I didn't discover it, but I it was there, but I didn't see it before.
Well, look, it's the same way that someone who goes to a new continent, you're the first of your kind to go to a new continent. They say, oh, you discovered it. Well, no, you were the first one there. You started to chart it. It was already there. You just happened to be there, a visitor in a sense, charting something that's already there. So I think there's that. I want to, in a moment, talk a little bit about the officials and that kind of thing, because again, confrontational me, I got a few issues here. But before we do that, I just want to comment on how delicious it is. See, there I'm talking through my Shen again, aren't I? It's fun being able to have an increased vocabulary. How delicious it is to have an inquiry. It takes you 10 years to get it to a certain point. It'll take you another 10 years to get to some, point further down the road. It's wonderful having something that captures your imagination, allows you to work in the world, investigate something you're interested in, knowing that you're not looking at a process that's a few days or a few weeks, but it truly is a long voyage. Something wonderful about having that kind of thing connected to your livelihood. So I want to come back to the officials and the emperor or the empress, whoever. I understand this is how we talk about East Asian medicine. I get it. And I understand this is how the books are written. But look, nobody in modern life talks that way. And most of us in modern life, you talk about an emperor or a king, and we're like, oh yeah, that person in power, we should probably take them down and cut their damn heads off. You know what I mean? It's like like the official in charge of the granary. Oh, you mean those guys running the agricultural industry? Poisonous and all their, pesticides? I mean, look, I get it that it's a metaphor, and I love metaphors. I have no problem with that. I get it, we're talking metaphorically here. But there's a part of me that just really rolls my eyes and thinking, oh, God, isn't there some other way that we can talk about this? And so I'm particularly delighted to have you here with me today, because it seems like you have this way with embodiment and touch, and the time that you've spent exploring this inner world. Can we maybe touch on some of these? Yes, we think about them in the way that we've been taught. Is there another way of getting in touch with, say, the emperor? I know you're not supposed to disturb the emperor. The emperor's busy. Go away. We talk to the prime minister. But is there a way to talk to the emperor? Is there a way of connecting with that aspect of granary or earth? in this embodied way that you're speaking of, that doesn't require us to tell the story of a bunch of medieval people with their turf wars.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Michael, but I like to tell a good story to my patients. When when I feel the pulse and I tell them, your heart seems a little bit restless, or hey, when the heart pulse, and so what's going on? And people tell me, I made this mistake once that I told people in China, people go to an acupuncturist and they don't tell them what's wrong. The acupuncturist tells them what's wrong, and some people really practice that still. So they don't tell me what they have. So I feel the pulse, and I say, your heart pulse is agitated. So what's going on? How's your sleep? What's going on in your life? And so they tell me, and then I tell them, I feel it from the heart pulse. We're talking Chinese heart here. So we're not talking about this pumping machine that we all imagine if we talk about heart. But we're talking about, I tell them about a king or a queen, so that, and I say, the emperor or empress has to sit on a throne and connect to the heaven, do rituals every day to be prosperous as a country and to lead all the organs together to your destination. So it needs some stillness, it needs some quiet and awareness, consciousness. And I tell them about Lao Tzu being in that part of the head, sitting there meditating. And I try to give them a picture of how I look at the heart. And then we talk about this silence or stillness or consciousness. And people say, yeah, my mind is racing and I'm, in a constant state of too much. And so I try to sketch these officials in a way that people can deal with it. Because it's not very comfortable to talk about the heart, because people feel immediately sick, or they feel pathology, and sometimes they feel the heart racing, or they feel palpitations, and you don't want to go there.
No. In fact, I try not to name the organs. I do my utmost in practice not to name the organs because I know it will be misconstrued. I just avoid naming them.
Yeah, I try to talk about it with this maybe very off storytelling.
So that works for you in your practice. You're comfortable with those metaphors, the feudal metaphors. You're good with it. You're comfortable. It's for you that it fits, and it's a way of telling a story and asking questions and giving people something to kind of dream into and have a conversation with you about.
Yeah, and keeping it in this realm of potentiality instead of the physical organs. So I can deal with it quite well. Like the lung being the one who spreads the news and communicates, and of course, like people coming now with hay fever. I don't know about you, but also in the February, March, the first people start coming with hay fever. So you talk about the lung and the liver and about the energy going down. And I showed them this picture of the lung, hanging down in the body like a wine rank, and the liver that's bringing all the energy up and trying to get all things expressed. And then I kind of try to explain it to them via the movements, the colors, and the seasons. And so I try to like paint a picture, because that is how I imagine that it's run. And I agree, it's an ideal world that your emperor and all the officials want to bring you to your destination. That's what they want.
Oh, see, so here's the thing for me. Again, I am the kind of person I am. I don't see it as an ideal world. I see it as a medieval fiefdom. And I know people, they're greedy and they got turf, and the liver is having a bad day, so it goes over and raids the granary because I can.
The ideal is that they bring you to your destiny.
Okay, we're going to get to destiny. We're going to get to destiny in a second.
Okay.
But I keep coming back to this thing of, and I think about families too, for that matter, right? You could also just make it about families. But here's the thing about any organization of people. yes, there's that aspect of cooperation. And yes, there's that aspect of competition. And I'm going to try to get what's mine and maybe a little bit of what's yours. And so often when we're looking at people that have some kind of illness or trouble, it's because usually one of the organs is misbehaving. Maybe one of them is a little weak and the other's taking advantage of them. I mean, we see this. So there's just this part of me that I don't know. I look at the drama of that and go, well, we're talking about peace in the kingdom, but the kingdom's a damn mess.
That's normal, isn't it?
I think it is normal.
If you see the Shiatsu world, it's all fights. We all fight over each other, and I think that's normal. But by the end of the day, you should arrive at your destination, and the emperor is supposed to lead that.
Yes. So we're going to get to destiny in a minute, but before we do, I keep hearing you talk about potentiality, and again, that to me sounds like an invitation. So I'm very curious about that. And can you tell me a little more about how you see that, where you see that, and can you actually feel that or palpate it in the body? And how can you use that to help people?
Then when we start working with this idea that we work in the inner landscape, we know that everything in the inner landscape is whole and is not restricted by manifestation. It's in the process. So when we access the inner landscape by using meridians and acupuncture points, we kind of dig into this in these concepts, in these symbols. So from there, it's the ocean. It's an enormous well, or how could you say, a source that we can work from and take that with us. Yeah, did I make myself clear, Michael?
It's a little vague. Look, we're talking about a terrain that doesn't exactly lend itself easily to words. So let's come at it from another angle. It's coming from the angle of touch and sensation and what you're doing when you have your hands on people. Is there another way to talk about it through that world of physical touch and the kind of communication that goes on that way?
Having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things you can do as a healthcare practitioner. Because a robust business is the ultimate expression of vital chi. And that's the heart of our medicine. I'm Julie Bairdontlock, and I help practitioners grow nourishing, profitable, authentic businesses that embody the generative cycle of Chinese medicine. This isn't about all yang all the time. It's about expanding your own internal capacity, growing collaborative relationships with your patients for ethical patient retention, and marketing as an extension of this medicine, not a necessary evil. You already know that everything is connected in your patients' lives and bodies. The same is true for your business. When we align your systems, your schedule, your pricing, and your offerings with you, we create flow, which means more spaciousness, more impact, and more joy. When you are in the flow, fully resourced in terms of chi, time, and money, your business becomes a source of healing, not just for your patients, but for you. Let's grow something rooted, radiant, and real. Visit lifeflowconsulting.com to learn more.
Yeah, you realize when you touch someone. I used to be trained as a physical therapist, and then you touch the muscles or the ligaments, or that's a way of touch. But when you touch with the intention of arriving at a meridian, you kind of your intention is different. You dig into this conceptual world, is the world of potentiality, because suddenly you feel a line. You feel something welling up or something closing off, or so you have access to a different body, I would say. Yeah, it is. So you could stop at this muscle tone that is has an excess tone, or a cramp or a spasm, or and if you would, align your intention even deeper, you could access this meridian and try to enhance it, or you try to disperse it, or and from there feeling the muscle tone change. Or so it's, do you recognize this feeling that sometimes when you're needling the spleen, sometimes I have this feeling like I, because we're a country of bicycle people, I have the feeling that I'm pumping the tires of the bicycle. You know this feeling? I needed the spleen, or I move the chi of the meridian, and I rotate the big toe, or spleen 3 or 4, and I feel like I could almost see, this, the tone of the spleen meridian getting there, in the body, like I pump the pump the tires of my bicycle.
So there's a kind of sensation that you have as part of your, I'm going to say, feeling palpatory vocabulary, just from being a human being and living on the planet and having all kinds of experiences. There's all kinds of feeling that you have in your, I'm going to call it feeling vocabulary, and you bring that up as you're working with somebody. Is that, do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I can see how that fits with potential, and I can see how that fits with story. We got the story of the official with the granaries, but wow, I think about all the different sensations I've had, riding a bicycle, skiing downhill, or falling in love, or enjoying a good meal, right? These are all parts of an internal landscape as well. They connect with the internal emotions, they connect with various organs and meridians, right? There's that sensation of delight or disgust or satisfaction, and somehow tapping into those in myself as I'm working with somebody. That's an interesting experiment. I've never thought about working that way. Like, what if I wanted to tonify someone's spleen? Well, what would that be like for me? What would it maybe be like for them? Or what's coming up in me when I think of it? I love your image of pumping the bicycle tire. We all know what that feels like, to gently, slowly, and you can't rush it, right? When you inflate a bicycle tire, it's pump by pump by pump. You can go faster, you can go slower, but it's just, there's that rhythmic bit of time it's going to take. So it's interesting thinking about working with, again, I'm going to call it the vocabulary of sensation when working with people.
Yeah, I also had this, like when you're working with the water energy, with the kidney, or for examples, Renmai 4 or 6, and you in Shiatsu we work on the abdomen a lot. So we're based in Ampuku, and so when we work with the abdomen, and sometimes you have to hold your hand there for a long time, in order for people to arrive there, and then after a few minutes, when they start gathering their breath there, or you could almost feel like something welling up there, like starting to come up from somewhere deep, or coming up like a geyser. Geyser, I don't know if that's a good word.
Yeah, no, it can be.
Yeah. So, and then people ask me afterwards, what happened there? Because I feel that something was moving under your hand, and then I talk about the clock. You have these old-fashioned clocks with this weight under, the very old-fashioned one, and the clock can only run because it has this weight. So I tell them, because you're there now, you have this counterbalance in your body. You have the water energy in the hara is more present, so you walk different. Your breath is more easy. Your heart can be more restful, because you have this counterbalance. So that's a feeling I try to translate. Instead of talking about the kidneys, I talk about a clock, or a counterweight. Or you must use these images too.
I do. What I try to do is use imagery or metaphor that my patient has talked to me about with what's going on with them. Because that helps me to connect with them and their world. I try not to give them my imagery. I try to discover theirs. Now, I've got my own internal imagery and my own internal sensations and all that. And sometimes that will match up with my patients. And that, that's handy. But again, I really strive to keep the focus on them. How can I understand them from their point of view? So I try to use their metaphors because that's their language and I'm visiting their country.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. I'm visiting their country. Yeah. Yeah, you cannot translate your landscape into theirs. No, that's true.
Well,
Yeah.
I could try, but that's colonization.
No, I'm Dutch. I'm good at that. Oh, that's terrible.
Well, look, it depends on your time frame. Okay. If you're looking the past few hundred years, that's one story. Take the story and look at different peoples coming together over thousands of years instead of just hundreds. You'll see other stories. So what are you going to do? Our cats and dogs have colonized us too, so we don't seem to mind. Anyway, I'm just being playful here. I want to come to destiny. You mentioned destiny, and every time I hear about destiny, I get kind of curious and I get a little scared because, destiny is a big word, like, woo, boom, destiny, It always worries me a little when people are talking to me about fate and destiny. But I know we talk about it a lot, in that character in Chinese, Ming, which means both life and destiny, Mingman, very important portion of the body, right? I know there's something there. I'm trying not to make light of it, but I mean, it's a big thing. And I always get a little nervous around big things because it takes a long time to understand them. So I'd love to get your take on it.
Yeah, when I discovered that at the point of conception, your Ming Meng is formed, I realized that destiny is not something you achieve, but destiny is the first thing that got you going. Like.
Oh, wow.
So it's in you. It's your basic fire that ignites the whole system. So I don't see it as faith but something that somehow along the way you get a feeling is this is really my passion, or this is where I want to go, or I get really going for this. So then I think that's part of your destiny, or this what you should do. We kind of came into this theory, in the East Asian medicine part, and I think I'm good here. And I like to work with people. I like to teach people about this subject. So I don't see it much more than that. I'm on my path, and I like it. I enjoy it. So
I like that. I'm good here.
yeah. So I don't see it very vague. I'm very practical. Can you relate to that, Michael? Is that something?
I absolutely can relate to it, and I appreciate you fleshing it out a bit for me here. Because I've always had this idea that destiny is where you're headed and where you're going to go. And what I hear you saying, and this rings true, I love these conversations because sometimes I'll hear something like what you just said about destiny is not what you achieve, it's what gets you going, right? I hear that and I go, oh, wait a minute. That's right. That sounds right. What if I readjusted my compass, my inner compass, so to speak? Instead of looking at it and going, oh, yeah, destiny, it's up there in the future and it's something I'm working toward and something to be achieved. There's that whole achievement thing. What if instead I spend some time recognizing, oh, destiny is what got you started. It's what got me started. That just connects to a whole different, another favorite word of yours, potentiality.
You highlighted it, huh?
Well, it just keeps coming up for me as we're having the conversation.
I love that.
I do too, because so often when I hear about destiny, I'm always afraid I'm going to like screw it up and be a failure. Like, you got a potential destiny. Make sure you get there. Don't mess it up. It's like, oh, actually, it got you started. So you're already on course.
Yeah, your ignition is there, so go. Yeah, you're heading in the right direction. Yeah,
Well, maybe you're headed in the right direction. Sometimes we're not.
yeah. And then we come back.
Yeah, that piece that you mentioned about, oh, I'm good with this. I think that's an indicator you're probably on track.
Yes, yeah, yes, I am. Yeah, it's nice that you received this meditation so well. I like that. So I hope that gives a clue about the inner landscape and these three treasures that and the potentiality I like to talk about so much.
Yeah, no, Joyce, I really appreciate this time that we spent together because you have helped me take something that's been more an idea and a concept rooted into feeling and physiology, and then we got to have a conversation about it. So it's not just an idea, it's like an internal inquiry.
Yeah. And quicker, if you even think about this delight or your eyes, you immediately have your shin back. I'm always surprised how quick it is. It's immediately there. Even if you think about it now, boom, it goes up.
I think with so many things, I think about like language acquisition, for example, where when you first hear new sounds, some of which you don't even know how to make yet, they've all got a meaning. In the beginning, it's just noise. But over time and exposure, you recognize, oh, there's a pattern. And after you recognize there's a pattern, you go, oh, and there's some meaning there. And then things connect to other things. And, next thing you know, you're actually having a conversation. And being able to recognize, oh, round, soft eyes full of delight. Ah, yeah, it's like the Shen will immediately come in because there is a connection there. It's like learning a new word in a language, except this is an internal state that's being called forth by evoking it or feeling it or recognizing it. I love that it's connected to physiology. Oh, round eyes. And the chest gets lighter.
I love the way you put that. Great. Wow. It's good.
Yes, it is. I suspect that there's a whole lot more in this book of yours. Is it available in English at this point, or is it still coming into English?
No, it's ready, and you can buy it from Amazon. It's everywhere in the world now.
It's everywhere in the world. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
We live in such an amazing time, don't we? Like,
yeah,
you did a book. Where is it available? Everywhere in the world.
Yes, it sounds a little bit crazy, but Amazon is everywhere. So no, so when you order it, it's printed on demand wherever you live. So
that's I love that because you don't waste any trees.
Yeah. So the title is Softening Our Gaze, to immediately provoke this feeling, and then the inner landscape and Shiatsu. So I hope people are trying to buy the copies, or to be, if they want to know more.
I will make sure there's information on the show notes page so people can go find it. And again, thank you today for a stroll through that landscape.
Great. I'm really appreciating how open you went for it.
All right.
I said, I'm going to have a hard time here.
Apparently not.
Great.
All right,
I loved
Joyce.
it too, Michael. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I love the idea that destiny, it's not where you end, it's what gets you started. Seems to me that in our profession, we have a kind of fetish around destiny. Perhaps a deficiency of understanding on my part, but pretty much every time I hear the word destiny tossed about, I want to start looking for where the exits are. It's one of those extremely amorphous terms that I think is very, very easily dreamed into. And so it's difficult to have a conversation about it because it so often is wrapped up in mystique, imagination, our anxieties about the future, and concern that we, through our own bad habits or ignorance, are jeopardizing the true measure of our days. When I hear the word destiny, or worse yet, the mandate of heaven, I feel like I'm a leaf in the wind. I think what I'm saying is I don't even know how to begin grounding that conversation. So hearing that destiny, it's not where we end. It's what gets us started. That I can work with. That I have some agency of in the moment. Where it all ends up, out of my hands, except for the moment-to-moment choices that open up different experiences along the way. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of Qiological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Qiological.